Hey, this is Coach Anderson from Mississippi Public Broadcasting Online, U.S. History from 1877 to present. Today we're going to pick with unit number 14, The Rise of Modern America, lesson number 9, Trump's first term from 2017 to 2021. We'll start by talking about President Donald J. Trump. Donald Trump sets himself up to be president of the United States of America when he does a couple of things even before he tries to get the Republican nomination. The one thing that he does, of course, is he becomes very vocal about whether or not President Obama, of course, even has the legal right to be president of the United States of America by questioning whether or not he was a citizen of the United States of America. And that sets him up to become very popular, with certain segments of the American population, which will allow a grassroots kind of movement to happen to push him, of course, into the national spotlight as a presidential candidate. We're going to look at the two unit focus questions that we have here. How has globalization affected the development of modern America, and how has grievance affected the American political landscape? Well, when we look at those questions, of course, we won't address those questions now, but at the end of the unit, we'll come back and we will look at them, extensively. All right, we have a vocabulary here, just as we always tell you. What we want you to do, of course, is define as many of these terms as you can. And what we'll do, of course, is they come up in the lesson. We'll try to address as many of them as we can at that time. All right, our lesson focus questions for lesson number 9. How did Donald Trump emerge as the leader of the Republican Party in 2016? And once again, as soon as the lesson concludes today, we will address that particular question and give you some insights in terms of why it happened the way that it happened. All right, we're going to start with our do now activity. We have a journal topic here, and just as we always tell you to do, take out your journals, write down this particular question, of course, and give us, take some time, think about it and formulate your answer. Should constitutional amendments be exempt from judicial review to determine if they should be adjusted to meet the changing demands of society? So go ahead, at this particular time, contemplate your answer, write it down, and we'll talk about it on the other side. One of the things that you should have looked at, of course, was that term judicial review. Judicial review allows us to be able, our courts to be able to go through and look at a particular, ruling and determine, ruling in a court case and determine whether or not it is constitutional or not. For instance, when you look at the 18th Amendment, of course, that gave us prohibition. We're going to find that the prohibition, of course, will be declared unconstitutional and be reversed with the 21st Amendment. That would be a classic example of judicial review. Well, one of the things that we're going to look at today is going to be some questions that arise in terms of whether or not constitutional amendments should be exempt from judicial review. According to what we have now, we have to say that, of course, they shouldn't be exempt from judicial review. So when we're looking at it, we're going to find that throughout our history, we're going to find that various amendments, of course, have been created, and they're subject to judicial review, as they probably should be, because that's the way the framers, of course, set it up. All right, in the election of 2016, we have on the left Republican Donald J. Trump, and on the right, Democrat Hillary Clinton. Now, in this particular election, Hillary Clinton will make history. She will be the first woman from a major political party, of course, to gain the nomination of their party. She will win the popular vote, of course, against Donald J. Trump, but because he wins the electoral vote, he becomes president of the United States of America. Vocal critic of Obama, Donald Trump won the nomination of the Republican Party in 2016 and defeated Democrat Hillary Clinton. In the general election, he promised to lock her up because she was accused of using a private email server while serving as Secretary of State under Barack Obama. This is one of the main rallying points or cries that the right, of course, with Donald Trump, of course, has to garner support for him and against Hillary Clinton. Trump seized on the perceived embrace of a globalist agenda by the Democrats and promised to build a wall to end illegal immigration by embracing nativism. He wanted to root out suspected corruption, protect Second Amendment rights, stop the socialist creep, and return America to a Christian nationalist focus. Out of those aims, the Make America Great Again movement was born, even though it was a co-opting of Reagan's 1980 campaign slogan. Now, when you look at those things that are outlined here in terms of what the MAGA agenda was, these were some of the things, of course, that Obama was criticized for. They said he had a globalist mindset when it came to the United States of America. He wasn't concentrating on enough in terms of what the focus in this country was. A lot of people, in terms of looking at the Christian national focus, a lot of people said that he was a Muslim. So when you're looking at all of these different things, it is a response to the previous 8 years of Barack Obama. Make America Great Again. Here on the left, you see a man, of course, with a lock her up shirt, for Hillary Clinton and Make America Great. The signature of the Trump administration is a red trucker hat, of course, with Making America Great, and then the Trump Pence, sticker, Trump Makes America Great Again Committee. Draining the swamp. The Trump presidency marked the end of traditional politics. Trump adopted an aggressive approach to government by demanding loyalty to his agenda with firings, withholding support and primarying anyone not on board with his agenda. If you are a person in the Republican Party that spoke out against Donald Trump, what he would do, of course, when you were running for office to be reelected, he would have somebody primary you. In other words, where you might not have any competition, of course, for the nomination for the Republican Party, he would make sure that there was some competition for you in the Republican Party that might prevent you from becoming the party's nomination for your particular district. His pledge on the campaign trail was to drain the swamp and rid America of corrupt political career politicians, of which he said he, of course, was not. He was an outsider that was going to clean up Washington. Trump was criticized as being a bully, a racist, a misogynist by the fake media, Democrats and some Republicans, but was celebrated by his base as a champion of Christianity, opponent of woke culture, and the national protector of American way of life. So when you looked at it, Trump, during his administration, some different, terms, of course, kind of emerge. One of the ones that emerges is fake media. Anybody that said something, of course, that was wrong in Trump's mind or whatever, he labeled them, of course, the fake media. And what that did, of course, is it endeared him even more to his base. Trump's presidency successes and challenges. Well, some of the successes, and there were, quite a few successes during the Trump administration. Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, criticized by some, of course, being things, the tax cuts, of course, for the wealthy. Criminal justice reform, the First Step Act. United States-Mexico-Canada agreements which replaced NAFTA. Deregulation of American businesses. Peace deals in the Middle East, called with the Abraham Accords. The expedited rollout of COVID-19 vaccines were some of the challenges that Donald Trump faced, of course, as President of the United States of America. Border wall and immigration policies. Now, he said that he was going to build a wall. The wall never got built. Some portions of it got built, but the wall never got built. And immigration, even during the Trump years, still continues to be a little bit of an issue. Capitol riots and the response. When there was a riot, of course, on Capitol grounds, President Trump was criticized for not taking more of an active role to try to prevent the violence from happening. While riots were happening at the White House, he was accused of not taking an active interest in trying to prevent the violence, of course, that was happening. Once again, an accusation, not necessarily, an accusation, which is what an accusation is. Impeachments, of which he faced 2. Handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, handling of racial strife and divisiveness. A lot of people looked at President Trump, of course, as being the most divisive president in the history of the country. Now, I don't know if that's the truth or not, but that's just what some people, of course, seem to think. He perceived, there was also a perceived embrace of right-wing nationalists and hate mongers like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers when he didn't denounce those particular groups. And even after the Charlottesville riot, in which he said that, quote, there were good people on both sides. Good people on both sides. A lot of people perceived that as being his embrace of right-wing nationalists. Here is President Trump making a speech at the Ellipse after he had lost, of course, the election of 2020. And he accused the Democratic Party of stealing, and Democratic states of stealing the vote, of course, from him, causing him not to be reelected in 2020. And this is the Stop the Steal rally right before the attack on the Capitol building. On the left, you see police, of course, under attack at the Capitol riots, and then on the right, you see Trump supporters, of course, who are at the Capitol building and who eventually make their way inside. Joe Biden wins the election of 2020, and he is elected president, defeating the incumbent Donald Trump, and it starts, a period in the history of the United States of America where even more scrutiny, of course, comes on the presidency, and the Biden administration is scrutinized heavily for things from corruption to influence, and most of these, of course, that were perpetuated by Trump and Trump supporters. But in the election of 2020, Joseph Robinette Biden becomes president of the United States of America. All right, so how did Donald Trump emerge as the leader of the Republican Party in 2016? Well, there were a couple of reasons. There were a few reasons why, and one of the most important ones was his outsider appeal. He promised to drain the swamp. He had a populist message on immigration, like build a wall, and trade. Evangelical support also promising Christian nationalism. Public frustration with the Republican establishment was the swamp. In the swamp, you got to understand there were a lot of people who were disenfranchised with both parties, and when the Republicans came to start trying to decide who their candidate wanted to be, they didn't want somebody to be a part of the problem. They wanted somebody on the outside that would come in, of course, and clean everything up. Now, all right. We've concluded talking a little bit about the Trump presidency, and what we try to do is give you some insights in terms of why it is to become so popular with the American public. And we talk about his populist appeal. Now, President Trump, of course, becomes the president in 2016, and we're going to find that in 2020 he does lose this particular election, even though, of course, to this day, he still said that he didn't lose. But it kind of gives you an insight into what the American psyche was. They wanted someone, of course, to champion their causes, and they thought they found it, of course, in Donald Trump. But once again, this is one man's opinion. Do your own research, draw your own conclusion. This is Coach Anderson from Mississippi Public Broadcasting Online U.S. History, and we'll see you next time.